With the Russia investigation and the political wars heating up, joining us now is Mark Lotter, who recently stepped down as Vice President Pence's top spokesman, is now a surrogate for the president's outside political efforts. So this story about Hillary Clinton and the Democrats funding the firm that ended up procuring this unverified Trump-Russia dossier, I love that word, was broken by the Washington Post. Does that not show that the mainstream media are sometimes willing to go after the other side, not just Republicans?
Well, when you look at what you saw on CNN and MSNBC happening later this week, they were blaming this all as fictitious creation of Fox News, yet they ignored the fact that it started with the Washington Post. I mean, this is just another example of the fundamental disconnect between some of the media who've abandoned reporting for resisting, and why one of the reasons why, you know, when you look at just about every single day part, Fox News here has larger audience and bigger ratings than MSNBC and CNN combined.
Blaming Fox News, I'm shocked. Speaking of CNN, we mentioned earlier that I want to get your take on this as a former reporter. So CNN has this story based on a source. Robert Mueller has a first indictment, and now it's sort of been confirmed it's going to be announced Monday. Hours and hours and hours of talk and chatter. We don't know who it is. It could be a small fish. It could be a big deal. What do you make of that kind of sort of endless speculation with the key missing fact?
Well, I think one of the things you have to look at is who leaked potentially confidential and sealed grand jury information, if that is in fact what happens tomorrow. But the other fact is again, you've got some liberal outlets jumping to conclusions, speculating on what it could be when we don't know. I mean, as anything we have seen in past from these special investigations is that they rarely actually ever result in charges or issues that are related to what their original charter was. It usually is something else completely unrelated to what they were originally looking into. And so we just don't know at this point.
Now, I'm not trying to outlaw speculation on television, but, you know, the identity of the person who allegedly, supposedly is going to be indicted, obviously is a very big deal. Let me move now to this internal battle within the Republican Party. President Trump going after Jeff Flake and Bob Corker, who went after him. In fact, they started it. They're both retiring. Does that create what the White House would call a distraction from other issues? For example, the president having his big presentation declaring a public health emergency on opioids, because the press loves these intra-party fights.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I heard Ari Fleischer say it the other day on Fox. He was saying there's always about a dozen lead stories on any given moment going on at the White House. And so work on tax reform, work on repealing and replacing Obamacare. All of those things continue regardless of what may be, you know, being discussed in the media. But the one thing, and I'll say I've got faith in these elected leaders, all of them, you know, on the Republican side, that when it comes time to voting on something that the president and that other Republicans have been talking about for a very long time, like tax cuts, reforming the tax system, that's something that they're going to have to vote for.
So you don't buy the distraction argument, the idea that a lot of the media oxygen is consumed by the political sniping, less on the issues that the White House is pushing?
If legislation was actually done on personality and relationships, Obamacare would already be repealed because John McCain would have voted with his good friend Lindsey Graham.
All right,
they do it on policy.
Okay. Now, as I mentioned, you had worked until recently for the vice president. Do you think Mike Pence, on balance, has been covered fairly, or has there been an attempt by some in the press to drag him into the Russia story, even saying he knew something or he should have known something, and somehow to get him involved in that narrative?
Well, I think there's always this tendency to try to draw distinctions between the vice president and the president on any given issue. We saw this during the campaign, during the early times in office. And
Pence makes it hard.
And he makes it very difficult. But the one thing people don't really understand, and I think some in the national media are actually starting to get this, is the remarkably close relationship that the president and the vice president have. They are in constant communication with each other. They've become good personal friends. And what you're seeing is that the vice president is probably one of the biggest champions out there for the president's agenda. And so I think a lot of that narrative has shifted recently into more of how do we get that moving
in 10 seconds, has the press, by and large, covered Vice President Pence fairly?
I think they have. There have been a few instances where I would question it, but by and large, I would say yes.
All right, we've got it on tape. Mark Lotter, great to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks very much for coming in.